We just want to mention a few safety facts about swimming pools. So any contractor that alters any plumbing on a swimming pool by law becomes liable for anything that happens in that pool. So we always want to make sure that if we do anything to a swimming pool, change a heater, change the filter system, change the pump, that we bring your pool up to code by the Virginia Baker Pool Safety Act that was enacted by Congress back in 2008. So any contractor you have working on your pool, making alterations to any of the plumbing or the hydraulics of your swimming pool, you want to make sure that you bring the pool up to code. God forbid anything should happen and someone should get stuck on the drain or get their hair caught in the drain line or drowned in the pool or anything. So you always want to be safety conscious. Make sure you have a fence around your pool if you have kids. Make sure the door handles are up at proper height for code. Make sure you have alarms on the back door of your patio so that you know if the kids are going in and out of the back door. Just please be safe out there. The last thing we want is anybody to get hurt in a swimming pool. They're for your enjoyment, not for your terror. So please follow all the rules and regulations set forth by the county, state, federal government. Sharkey's Air is also a pool contractor. We do mechanical, everything mechanical on your pool, from variable speed pumps to chlorine generators to control systems. So today we're going to show you how to clean your chlorine generator, which they refer to as the salt cell. You'll notice that this pool has a Pentair variable speed pump, which will save you about 80% of the electrical cost versus a regular single speed pump. It also has a salt generation cell, or I'm sorry, a chlorine generation cell that generates chlorine. So you're making your own chlorine, so you don't have to carry chlorine buckets and wreck your car and wreck your clothes and all of that kind of stuff. This pool also has a Pentair Easy Touch control system on it to control the variable speed pump and the chlorine generation in this pool. So we're just going to go through a little bit how to actually do a maintenance on the chlorine generator. So the first thing you want to do, of course, is shut the pump off. So in order to shut the pump off, you have to go to the control system. The control system has a mode button. We're going to hit the mode button and put this into the service mode so that the pump shuts off and that we have no water flow. The next thing we want to do is we want to relieve the pressure from the system so that when we open this up, the pool water doesn't siphon out on the ground. So all pools have a pressure relief valve on their filter. And I don't know if you can hear the sound, but it's obviously sucking air. You're going to get bubbles coming up into your pump. That relieves the pressure on the system so you can actually take the salt cell out, take the chlorine generator out of the system. So chlorine generators are just put in with unions. Typically the unions are hand tight, so you shouldn't need any tools. It does take a little bit of strength to get them out. You loosen the two unions on either side of the chlorine generator. Actually pull the chlorine generator out of the system. You typically notice that inside the chlorine generator are plates. These plates carry an electrical charge that convert the salt that is in the water into a chlorine gas that is injected into the water as a gas rather than a liquid. And that provides a nice chlorine level for sanitation, yet it doesn't dry the skin out, doesn't change the color of your hair, all of that kind of stuff. The salt content you want to keep in mind is about the same content of salt that is in your body fluid, like your tears and that kind of thing. So So you don't, it's not like salt water like the ocean. The ideal salt level on these is about 2,600 parts per million to about 4,000 parts per million. They like to keep the salt content at about 3,600 parts per million for ideal generation of chlorine. If you notice inside here, there's a little buildup on the plates. The buildup is the calcium that's taken out of the salt when you create chlorine out of salt. So we want to clean this all up so that this generator operates properly. So in order to clean these, the manufacturer recommends that you use 50% salt water and 50% muriatic acid. So we're going to make a mixture of 50-50 of pool water and muriatic acid. We're going to pour it through the salt cell. You probably should be able to see it bubble and all that kind of stuff. It'll foam all the particles out of there. So we put this in a bucket. Muriatic acid is very toxic to the cement, so you definitely want to use gloves, safety glasses, that kind of stuff. Be very careful not to get muriatic acid on your skin. If you happen to get the acid on your skin or on the concrete, you want to make sure and flush it with water. So you want to always keep a garden hose close by so that you have a fresh supply of water at all times and you can flush it out. So we have water flow going here. We're just going to put some water in the bucket. Again, we want to be about 50-50 mixture. Again, be very careful with the acid. It will burn your skin. Okay, so after we use all the precautions, we mix our acid and water combination. We're just going to pour this straight into the cell. So what this actually does is this actually cleans the calcium deposits off of the cell plates so that it's clean and can generate chlorine again. So you want to let that sit in there for a little while and do what it's supposed to do and get the cell nice and clean. Once it's sat for a while, you want to take your fresh water and flush this out real good and rinse this out real good. So the other thing you have to keep in mind is that water will dilute the acid so that the acid is not toxic anymore. But you want to make sure and flush with plenty of water and make sure you get all the acid cleaned out of the cell real good. Okay, and that's all there is to that. So now you want to put the cell back in. Always make sure that you have the water flowing in the correct direction for the cell so that you have proper water flow. And it goes back in just about as simple as it comes out. They're always unionized. You just screw your unions on. Never tighten one in before the other, of course. Always get both sides nice and snug and then tighten individually so that you get nice even flow and you don't end up with any water leaks. Okay, so we got our cell back in place. Next thing we want to do is close our air vent back up and then turn our pump back on. We're just going to hit the mode button twice, go back into automatic so that our control system turns our pump back on, repowers our cell. You want to check to make sure that once it comes back on that it's not leaking. And I can't remind you enough to be very careful with the acid. You always want to put the water in the bucket first, then add the acid to the water. Make sure and not stand over the top of it because the fumes come out and you end up breathing the fumes and it's very toxic. So you want to be very careful. So your pump comes back on, water starts running again. You can bleed off some of the air bubbles if you need to. Every pool is a little bit different, but you bleed the air bubbles back out. The pump comes back on. You want to check to make sure that your unions are not leaking. You got it nice and tight. Your cell power comes back up, and then you're all set. So that's how you clean a chlorine generation cell. Today we are going to show you how to add salt to your saltwater pool for chlorine generation. This particular pool we know is at about 2,700 parts per million. So the first thing you need to do is dissolve the salt a little bit, and I'll talk about the salt a little bit. This salt is designed for pools. It'll say pool salt right on it. You can get it from any of the local pool stores, Leslie's, Pinch a Penny, any of the local pool stores you can get the salt from. So the first thing you want to do is dissolve a little bit of the salt. So in order to do that, we are going to put a little bit of water in our 5-gallon bucket here. Fill that up a little bit. We're going to pour the salt right into the bucket so that we can dissolve the salt. And you'll notice that this salt is powdery, like table salt, like iodized salt. So we go ahead and just pour that in there. So, and I usually like to do about a half a bag at a time. Typically I have a stick or something to stir it up with, but you can just mix the salt up. It's just salt water, so it's not going to hurt your skin. In fact, it's a very good cleaner and solvent. So you want to dissolve the salt a little bit. And the reason we do this, the reason we dissolve the salt before we put it in the pool, is because if you pour salt straight into the pool and it's left set on the finish of the pool, it can harm the finish of the pool. So that's why we try to dissolve the salt as much as possible before putting it in the pool. Once you do add the salt to the pool, you want to get your pool brush and stir it up a little bit and get it all up in the water. So again, you want to just kind of spread it around. So then again, we use like just your normal pool brush, hopefully without poking a hole in the screen, and just kind of sweep it around on the bottom. Make sure it's not sitting in one place. And mix it up a little bit. Get it all mixed up in the water. That's all you have to do. Simple as that.